And we're here, happy to have Will and Mo on the videos as well. And Lynn, welcome back, of course. Let's kind of, hop into it. We're talking to HTS today. For people that aren't sure, I guess kind of explain to people, what HTS is, what you guys do, and, kind of go from there.
So hi everyone, HTS is a manufacturer's rep for 50 different product lines for a variety of products from air handlers to chillers, boilers, wastewater heat recovery, kind of the whole mixed bag of equipment you need for HVAC in your building. Here we go help owners, contractors, consultants design, build, and service their HVAC systems for their buildings. It's kind of what we do. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Not bad. Mo, anything you want to add on top of that, or you think you crushed the short elevator pitch?
Yeah, I mean that really sums it up. And the key, that we want to talk about is we really are involved in the process from beginning to end, meaning from the inception, right, with the owners, all the way to servicing the equipment once it's installed. And we have different departments that kind of work together and call on different people. Will and I specifically, spend most of our day just talking to consulting engineers and a few owners, but mostly talking to consultants. And essentially, my day job, day in and day out, is just to make sure that, the consultants have somebody to talk to about some of these technical products so we can support them through the design. And that's essentially where a lot of the difficult questions or the questions that would come from the consultant side are questions that we would essentially want to ask Yulin, because, we have that avenue. We're going to be their voice today on this chat.
Yeah, and what made HTS really attractive to us is that the guys are proactively getting equipment in. They're not just seeing what's spec; they're out getting it spec'd. And quite often we'll have reps that just get the ticker back basically on jobs that are coming out, and they try to hit the spec. Well,
you can't do that with Sharc.
These guys are writing the spec. They're helping get the spec written. So that's exactly what we need right now. So 25 years ago, so when I first met Wayne, one of the principals at HTS, he was just signing on to be a water furnace rep. So that worked out pretty well for him over the years. And now they've got so many lines that we're excited to be one of those that these two smart young men are out there promoting.
Oh, awesome. So here I have maybe take a step back. Mo, I'll throw this question to you. Give me, the HTS ideal client, and give me the, what you guys do. So give me the short, you say all the way from start to finish, but maybe for people that aren't familiar with construction or even HVAC, maybe talk through, what that looks like.
The HTS process could be as simple as an owner that, has some general questions about different systems. What are the benefits of doing geothermal versus a chiller or things like that, some payback, budgets, things like that. So we would work through that with the owners, right? And at some point, they hire an architect, and the architect hires an engineer, and then the engineer essentially works with them to decide on what type of system that they want to work on, and that could involve us having the same type of conversations to support them to make that decision. And then once a system is picked, they kind of start going through your different designs, and throughout we will work with them on providing them with selections and budgets and stuff for space planning, and then we'll go through to detailed design. Provide that information all along, and eventually down, if you have a nice set of drawings that the owner and architect will essentially issue out to a construction manager or a select few contractors, and those guys will price it. And then we will have somebody else in our office that will essentially take a look at those drawings and work with the contractor, price the job, and it will have, if Will and I are doing our jobs, it will have our equipment specified on there, and then those guys would essentially, given that the price is right and everything's all good, we would be awarded the equipment and would go through the shop drawings, get everything approved, ship it to site, manage that construction cycle, get everything started up. And once you're started up and commissioned, everything's good, then we would do an owner demo and continue to stay in touch with the equipment and make sure that it's serviced throughout so it lasts a long time. And then the owner gets another building and we go through the same cycle again. So that's essentially the construction cycle as I see it.
I think that's awesome. And I guess to give people a little bit of a taste, what are these building owners looking for when you're putting together these plans? And I know that the spectrum could be crazy, and excuse the ignorance, but are they looking for, hey, like over 10 years I want to be able to save this much money? Or are they looking at it from the spectrum of, hey, there's a lot of pressure to be greener, I want to reduce my carbon footprint? What's kind of the big selling points for these guys? I mean, I'm assuming cost is one of them, and obviously cost savings, but what do you guys see?
I can take that one, Mo, if you want. I mean, yeah, it really depends on the owner and what their driving factor is. In Toronto, we see a lot of condo developers, so for them, it's strictly financial. But nowadays, with climate pressure and with Toronto Green Standard and other things, it's how can I need to be green a little bit. So what's my best avenue to be green that's most cost effective? Versus a university where they don't really care how much the building costs to build, they're going to own it for 100 years. And so they're all about, well, how's my building going to work well? How am I going to be the most efficient? And, hey, in 2050, this building's still going to be here. How am I going to be green? How am I going to be net zero in 2050 building a building today? So those kind of questions we get.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, sorry, go for it.
Just to echo that, I mean, I am seeing the trend, in the last few years of owners asking the questions of, how do I have a green building? How do I do my part? And especially in Toronto, I do see that push. So we're going to continue to see innovative products like Sharc actually be very successful in our market, because the trend is definitely heading in that direction. 5 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been as exciting, but definitely these days, it's definitely a hot item.
Yeah, I guess maybe talk to people about how Sharc fits in to your plans. I mean, everyone watching this, I'm sure, kind of understands what the Sharc system does, but do you want to talk through kind of how you're pushing it, or how you're letting clients know about the Sharc product?
Yeah, Sharc is very unique in my opinion, because it tackles a really large load that essentially isn't being tackled right now. And it's like the last piece of energy in your building that hasn't been recovered yet. As you kind of you've essentially, you've squeezed the performance out of your chillers, got really efficient equipment everywhere, you've managed your outside air, you've done all this stuff, and you've done everything that you could. So that stuff is as efficient as we're going to be with the technology that we have available today. And then you've got this nice untapped wastewater that has all this energy that's going down the drain, right? And it's just there for grabs, right? So essentially Sharc's going after that. And anybody that I've talked to has been really receptive to the idea, and he kind of explained to them and is yep, that makes sense. And the questions that I'm getting are less about, oh, that's not going to work, or it's just it's more about the nitty gritty hows, and how do you deal with this, or how do you deal with that, right? So definitely I find the engineering community is very receptive and open to Sharc as a product.
Yeah, interesting.
One thing, Jason, is that the guys have built their credibility on with engineers by bringing them new ideas that are functional. So they don't go in every day with, oh, you can try this new trick. They've vetted our technology, and they go in with a great deal of confidence now that it could be one of the solutions. So engineers count on Will and Mo coming in with ideas for them. So that's part of why they're always looking for new products as well.
And I think it's awesome. Well, I think, Mo touched on something extremely advantageous to Sharc, and it's, everyone else is focusing on, chillers, boilers, this, that, and you've got all these great products out there already. And it's hard to make better ones, but you have, wastewater that, like you guys have said, it's kind of liquid gold no one's looking at. As much as, of course, wouldn't want to actually touch the liquid gold, definitely seems like something that a lot of buildings are overlooking. So, a lot of engineers are like, huh, interesting. So I can see that for sure. Definitely an interesting insight there, Mo. So thanks. I'll throw this one to you, Will. What kind of future do you see for Sharc products? You touched on, Toronto's kind of green policy, and as well, trying to be net zero by 2020. What future do you see for, Sharc products and, kind of heat recovery in general?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think there's definitely a really good future as we, as building design continues to improve, and we look at a market like Toronto. Toronto's a cold climate, and like other parts of Canada, and you look at the rest of the world, it's quite an extreme compared to a lot of the world, and so we need to have solutions that work all year round. And geothermal is great, but it takes a lot of space and it's expensive. So I think that as we start to push building design to be tighter envelopes, so the heating loads go down, domestic becomes such a big portion that it can start to heat more and more. So I think that we'll start to see more and more where it just be something you have to tap into. We've exhausted a lot of things, and we need to use everything in our toolbox. We're pressed now to make buildings work, and so we can't let anything go anymore. So I think it's huge, and I think one of the big areas is going to be in the district energy side. If we look at a place like Toronto or University of Toronto, University of Waterloo, any school like that who they're looking to go net zero carbon, there's only a few options at a 20 to 100 megawatt size frame that they need. And biomass is one, but biomass has some downsides as well. But Sharc Energy it's there. It hasn't been touched, and it's waiting to be dealt with, waiting to be used. So there's big opportunity there, I think.
Awesome. No, I think that's pretty interesting. And I know like Sharc's kind of in the phase of, teaching people that it's possible and that it's there is, the current biggest uphill battle for Sharc. What do you think, Sharc could do to maybe improve, their adoption?
Yeah, for Sharc to improve their adoption, I really think that it's in a phase now where it's just early in the market. It's like we saw with electric cars 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I mean, I drive a Tesla because I think it's great. And I think it's really great in the environment. But 10 years ago, if you would have told me I'm going to drive an electric car, I would have said, well, you're crazy, because nothing existed in the market. And even 5 years ago, it was such an idea, well, all these problems, et cetera, et cetera. So we're just at that point where electric cars are really starting to take off. And I think the same thing for Sharc is you got to get out there, get market awareness, and get more and more job sites under your belt, and then people start to realize that hey, everyone knows a boiler works, and it's just about saying hey, Sharc, it works. It's been around, it works, lots of jobs. So I think that we're just at that very early stage. Luckily, I was gonna say, luckily for people, that there's a reason to go get it. You need to make buildings more efficient, and this is another tool in the toolbox that we need. So go ahead, Mo.
Yeah, the other thing that I want to add as well, the question was what can Sharc do better? I just probably want to say, what did Sharc do to essentially establish that growth? And I think they did one thing, which is establish a rep network throughout and picking the right partners. We see a lot of really good products that essentially are not represented well, and if you don't have the right partner in every local area, the product isn't going to be successful. So essentially, I think probably the biggest thing is picking the right partner and essentially doing that homework to make sure that your product is well represented in the geographical area that you're essentially targeting. And I think that's going to have an impact on Sharc's growth, in my opinion.
Awesome.
Yeah. How many offices do you have, Mo?
See, in Ontario, we've got, how many do we have, Will? We've got Toronto.
7, maybe?
7, right? And then we've got a bunch in Texas, New York, Chicago, Boston. So we've got strong presence, and we're the largest rep in North America.
Yeah. So, just having HTS come on board is a huge step forward to us. And we were very fortunate to be included in the EPRI Innovation Lab there. And I think that bit of credibility is going to go a long way for you, hopefully, to go say,
Absolutely.
Look what Sharc's done. So I think it's great. You're a big step forward with us, and we're super excited. What question would you get most from people when you go in and say, we're going to use your sewer as an energy source? Do you go, are you nuts? Get out of here, kind of response, or that's an idea, or?
I could start with this one. I think the biggest perception is, okay, where is this tank going to go, and how do you maintain the tank? Essentially, like it's all about, people kind of get scared about the tank, and I think one thing that we need to tackle is to make sure that we're clear in terms of how do you deal with the tank, sizing the tank, and maintaining it. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. One thing that engineers are going to look at us and Sharc to essentially support them on is essentially, okay, well, this is new, and you need to be educating us on the plumbing code, the local plumbing code, and the design and what's involved. So having those conversations and essentially saying, yeah, absolutely, we'll work with you through that, eliminates that kind of hurdle. But the biggest thing is essentially the tank and maintenance, and if you can speak to that a little bit, that would be good.
Yeah, we should maybe come out with a standard size of a tank and just get you the drawings and stuff. So I think Brock is working on that, and we can do that pretty quickly, because it's something that's pretty easy. So, and new construction is obviously easier than retrofit.
Of course, yeah.
But we need to put our heads together and figure out how we tackle that retrofit market. Mm-hmm. So I think in New York City, they came out with a stat, there's 50,000 buildings need to be retrofitted to meet their energy targets. So we've got to make it easier.
Right, and you're putting above ground tanks in those cases, right? So essentially dealing with that, how do you manage it? Do you have to worry about freeze protection? All those kind of like technical questions that your head engineers are going to be asking. Those are the questions that we need to address and make it easy for them.
I'll go back to Jody and Brock and get some of those addressed for you. And the good thing with Brock is he was a plumber putting in those tanks not too long ago, and now he's moved into sales. So he's really pretty good at that sort of stuff. So
yeah,
great.
We can get you the inverts and whatever else they call them. So
awesome. I mean, Lynn, is there anything else you want to kind of say or you want to ask the HTS guys?
Actually, another thing some questions that come up for me is, when you do the system and you're taking heat out of the wastewater, so that's great, but what pushbacks do we expect from municipalities? And for example, how cold can we cool the sewage down to? What are realistic average temperatures we can expect? Do they get worried about us interacting with the wastewater? So those are from a district energy customer I was talking to, that's kind of the big issue they've come across. And the inconsistency in the flow, which we all know about from domestic systems.
Yeah, well, those are great questions, Will. And every municipality we've ever been to, you can't cool the water cooler than it comes into the building at. So out here, that's usually around 4 or 5 degrees C.
Mhm.
So most buildings, it's exiting somewhere around 20 to 25 degrees C. So you can't take it below the temperature it comes in at. But what we find, especially with a Piranha, is once the cycle starts to work after the first batch is heated, that tank doesn't change much, because as you're using hot water, it's being replaced in the tank.
Mhm.
So after the first tank is heated, it still exits somewhere around 18 or 19 degrees. So we really don't affect it very much. And we'll have all of that information compiled on this EPRI test. We've got every minute of the day we're logging usage and temperatures. But once the cycle starts, the energy is just self-contained in the building, really doesn't change much. So I think one of the things that I personally like the most is that after the first batch, it's the same energy every day. You don't need new energy, you just have to move it. So, the temperature doesn't change much. And here in Vancouver, we've got that big site downtown that you're going to come out and see. And they have, 100 million gallons a day going through there. So to take a few megawatts of heat out of that, you can't even measure it. Like, there's no instrumental measure that finely. So there's so much available. If you're, I know you guys are going to be great salesmen. So what I want you to do is set a target of changing the temperature of the sewer in Toronto, 2 degrees. And
It'd
that'll
be amazing if we could do that.
Yeah, challenge
that's
accepted.
much energy. It's crazy. I think it's, what do we say, Jason? $3 million a day in New York City if you could just change it 2 degrees. So we're going to say, we're here to help you, and we need your feedback. Like, this is tremendous, and we just need to make sure we get you the tools, because the equipment works great. We just need to get professionals like you on the street that are promoting it, and the credibility HTS has is greatly appreciated.
Anything anyone wants to say? I think we've covered a lot of stuff. I think this was pretty great. We even got some of the deep stuff out. But Lynn or Will or Mo, anything you guys want to say or ask before we wrap things up?
Oh, I'm good, and we're just really grateful to have an opportunity to have guys like this promoting our product, and it's going to move us along faster. It's taken us years to earn the right to have guys like this, and we just don't want to blow that. We're gonna leave no stone unturned getting them the tools they need to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, Mo, Will, anything you guys want to say?
Just at HTS, we represent a lot of products, and this is one that everybody across the board is really excited about, because it is new and it is different, and it is effective. So we're looking forward to selling a lot of it. It's great.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on.